Hello and welcome to Romantasy Readers Podcast. My name is Nicole, and as always, I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Alley. We are very excited. We have a very fun episode for you today that is going to be followed on by something even more exciting, which is today we're going to talk about one of our favorite current reads. This is Dystopian's back. Would you agree, Alley, that
So
Dystopian
back.
it is so
Dystopian
back?
is so back.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And my little teenager heart is so happy because when I was like a teenager in high school and middle school, literally all I read was dystopian. That was
Yeah.
like my genre. It was like all I read was dystopian romance, and it was so exciting to have it back with spice, kind of. But I suspect more spice is coming.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
Well,
I'm so excited.
it's leveled up. It's leveled up because
Leveled
we're
up.
getting more. It's obviously it's blending, and it's not just the YA dystopians that we used to get. Now we've got adult dystopian. We've had Silver Elite. We've had, for a lot of people, Daggermouth is taking the world by storm at the moment. Everyone's reading it. Everyone's obsessed with it. Now that one is full dark romance spice.
I know.
And
I can't wait to read it.
you
It's
have to
on my
read
list.
it. We have to talk about that one too, because that is insanely good. But we are talking about my other favorite one today, which is by the amazing author Ariel Sullivan, and this is Conform. Now, this
Top
is
book for both of us for 2025.
yeah.
It was our both of our number one books for 2025.
Yeah. It was such a solid read. I cannot believe this book hasn't actually taken the world by storm. I can guarantee that give it another year or so, and I think everyone will have had a chance to actually read it and realize how good it actually is, because this is sharp. I'm reading it now for I think the third time, and I'm loving it just as much as the first time, sometimes more because I'm picking up extra little Easter eggs in it. But the writing is just sensational. So we are so excited because not only are we talking about this book today, but we are going to have Ariel Sullivan on the podcast. We are going to be interviewing her. We are so excited. We can't wait to ask her all our nitty-gritty questions about Conform. So
And see if we can get her to reveal something.
hopefully at
Probably
least
not.
I'm
but
hoping we might at least be able to get a hint of like the title, the release date, hopefully something like that, at least, fingers crossed. She's very excited to be joining us, so we can't wait to have her on the podcast. But
I read the first I had a plane ride, and I read the first 60% of this book in one plane ride because I was just so obsessed. And thankfully I was on a plane ride, because normally as I'm reading a book I really like, I will stop to send Nicole reactions and voice notes, but I couldn't do that because I was on a plane. So I was
you were 40,000 feet in the air.
Yeah, and then I got off of the plane, and it was 2 a.m. because it was a long haul flight to Boston from the West Coast, and I was like, okay, I have to tell you everything.
But would you agree this book is sharp? It's
so sharp. It's so
vivid.
well written.
It's like, even actually, I was explaining this story to my husband the other night, who hasn't read any of the books that I've read. But I was explaining this book, and I was explaining Daggermouth. And when I explained this one, he was so caught up in it. I'm like, it's almost like a Blade Runner kind of world. There's these big high rises, and the elite are up in the sun, and they're above the clouds. And then you've got the minor defects, and they're sort of under the clouds on the ground. And then you've got the major defects who live below ground. And it just, you instantly get this really vivid world, and then it's just constant entertainment, but eloquently done. You're better at the literary analysis than me, so perhaps you can break down what that looks like.
The plotting itself is really tight. It's probably only an 80,000, 90,000 word book, which is impressive to do. And I say that, and then somebody will look it up, and it's super long, but I just read it really fast. But it's impressive. It's not anywhere as long as a Fourth Wing or something like that. It's pretty short, and just it moves really fast. Everything is happening. You're kind of constantly reassessing your opinion of who is good and who is not, and what is going on. And it's really, really it's just really well written.
It is.
I don't have specific
It's just
things, but it's really
it's
good.
5 verging on 6 star read for
I
me.
agree. Yeah. Totally.
Because, as I said, for me, a 6-star book is one that I can't put down, one that I go back and read again, and I enjoy it just as much. They're the books that I go, wow, this is really, really special, that I'm enjoying this just as much second, third time read as I did the first time. Those are books that are really special, that are going to hold true for people in the long run. And I believe she's got her prequel book Beneath that is about to release, and then she's going to have the sequel to this one. And I think the Beneath is like, when I say prequel, it might be like, don't hold me to this, I feel like it's 100 years before or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what I read, but we'll find out for
Yeah,
sure.
but some of the people I've seen that have managed to get an early ARC copy and have read it have said it's amazing, possibly even better than Conform.
Yeah.
So I really think that Ariel is a talent. She's got Jenna from, is it Good Morning, the Today Show?
Yeah,
Today Show,
the
Jenna
book
Hooper?
is published by Bloomsbury, so big, big publisher. This is a publisher of Sarah J. Maas, but through an imprint of Bloomsbury run by Jenna Bush Hager.
Yeah.
Who has done, her imprint really has picked up some incredible books, and super exciting that this book was picked up and published, because yeah, and I think it was her Ariel's debut,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, which is super impressive.
Exactly.
It's really, really, really well done. So we'll do a little bit. Obviously, we've kept it spoiler free so far. We'll do, because I do actually feel like quite a few people have not read this book yet. Whereas, like, a lot of the times, by the time we're doing this, a lot of people have read this, but we're telling you, go read it. We'll give you a little bit of spoiler free stuff to kind of pique your interest, and then we'll get into the spoiler stuff.
Honestly, guys, like, just clear your schedule. You are ready for your dystopian era. Your books you have to read are this. You have to read Conform. You have to read Daggermouth. Maybe you have to read Silver Elite, because there is possibly an awesome sequel. Oh, I don't think I told you, Alley. Someone told me on that my theory on Broken Dove might be accurate.
Oh, that's exciting. That's really exciting.
Someone said it earlier, and I was like, you need to give me a spoiler. You need to give me a spoiler. I need to know what's going to happen, because I'm dying. Anyway,
really
I'm hoping that we might get a good love triangle in Broken Dove. So if that is correct, I think that Silver Elite is worth reading. If there is no love triangle, I don't know if Silver Elite's worth reading. So perhaps either read it or wait till I've read Broken Dove, and I will tell you if Silver Elite is worth reading. But there you go, lots of dystopian.
Speaking of love triangles, there is definitely a love triangle in Conform. But I will say, I am somebody who, I'm always like 50-50 on whether I like a love triangle or not. Sometimes I really like it when it's well done, and sometimes it just kind of annoys me. And I will say, in this one, it was very well done. Like, I kept changing my mind about who I wanted her to be with, and that to me is that's what a love triangle should truly be. I get really frustrated when there's a love triangle and
there's a clear wrong one, like, and a clear right one.
Right, exactly. And in this one, I really could not. I kept changing my mind about which one she should be with. And so really, really well done. And then, like Nicole said, it's it's a dystopian. It's really cool, because what I thought was so unique about it is that the world building is based on genetics, which is kind of unique. I feel I haven't, I'm sure there was something back in the day.
You know what? But it reminded me, have you seen that movie? Was it called Gattaca? And it's got Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. I just recalled this the other day, and I was like, that's what it reminds me of. So this was a sci-fi in the 90s, and it was like a time where they were people were like, they didn't have babies naturally anymore. They would actually go and get them genetically made perfect so that they would live the longest life and be beautiful, etc., etc. And his family decided, let's see, let's have a baby naturally. And it ends up showing that he's only going to live till 50 and stuff like that. So then he basically became a major defect, and all he could be was like a rubbish man and stuff like that. And then he tries to become like an elite, and only the people that were genetically modified to be perfect were like the elite. So actually it's very similar to, I'm thinking
very similar,
Gattaca. I'm pretty sure it was Gattaca.
In the Conform world, there's kind of 3 tiers of people. There is the elite, who are theoretically genetic. Well, there's kind of 4 tiers of people, but the top tier of people is like the elite, and they are genetically perfect, I
Yeah,
guess, which,
yeah.
how you
They're
define
not
that, which I think
genetically
totally makes
made to be perfect. They have to do everything naturally, but they will generally breed with each other
that
so that
they are,
they've got no genetic mutations.
yes. And then there's people who are called a minor defect, and that's the next layer down. And that is our main FMC is this like minor defect because she has eyes that are different colors. And so that apparently, it makes you genetically
Even
defective.
though she's
And
stunning
thus
in every
you're
other
kind
way.
of, yeah, exactly, exactly. And so they're kind of like the minor defects are sort of raised to be like in service to the elite, and then there's what's called the major defects, and these are people who have some, theoretical major defect, and they're not seen, they're like the grunt workers, they like,
Work the
clean the
night
street,
shift, live
work the night
underground.
shift. Yeah, and then there's this like top tier of leaders, which is like a council, and there's only like
A few of
a
them.
handful of people on this council, and I cannot remember their name.
Eloom. They're called the
The
Eloom.
Eloom, thank you, the Eloom. And we don't quite, and that's the MMC. The MMC is sort of maybe part of this Eloom. There's a lot of unanswered questions
Yes, there is.
about them, about basically all of this stuff, like, and how it all works and how it gets assigned. But that's kind of the general gist, right? Is you've
Yep.
got this minor defect who was born of elite parents, but born defective, essentially. And she gets assigned basically to mate with this Eloom, and things go from there. So that's
Yep.
kind of like the general vibes. So dystopian, but like in my mind, it reminded me a lot of. Did you ever read the series The Selection? That YA series.
Ooh, it sounds familiar, but I'm not sure if I have.
Yeah. So The Selection was this YA series where like similar to this book, young girls are kind of like kept kept secret, raised to go through this like selection ceremony. It's been literally years since I've read this.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah.
like they go through this selection ceremony to like marry some kind of noble or elite kind of person, and this girl is not raised for that, but then gets like added into the selection, and so there's just like all of these like beautiful dresses, and like it's
Oh,
almost like The Bachelor meets like dystopian kind of like YA
yeah.
romance is what it was. It was so good. Like as like a 16-year-old, I loved it.
Oh,
Um, but that's kind of the vibes.
the
So if
vibe.
you really like that
And
book,
what
that's the vibes of this book
Yeah,
too.
and what's really exciting about this book is that there is potentially this love triangle, and she's kind of caught between this Eloom mate and then this major defect who she starts crossing paths with, and then she's very pulled between what she's been groomed to kind of do her whole life, and then a rebellion that is potentially brewing underneath. And there's lots of questions around that rebellion and who might be part of it, and then she's getting exposed to these two worlds, and things are unfolding, and not everything she is being told is the truth, and so it all unfolds, and while it's eloquently done and beautifully done, it's also edge of your seat, like you were constantly going,
Yes.
oh my gosh, and then that spins and it
When did
becomes
this happen?
something
When did
else.
this
And there's fantastic side characters. Some of the side characters you're going to absolutely fall in love with. Others you're going to loathe by the end. It's almost got court intrigue, you would say, even though it's not. It's a more futuristic kind of world, but you have that
It is
backstabbing
court
and
intrigue
things.
though, because you're trying to figure out who's good and who's not, and who's, I mean, like in your classic like dystopian kind of situation, like people are not what they seem, and you're trying to determine like in this world, and this is a very established kind of dystopian world, like these rules have been in place for a long time, and so it's
Mm.
like you can't necessarily trust that just because somebody is part of the elite class that necessarily like they believe in everything of the elite, that
Yeah,
they also have to
exactly. There's a
protect
lot of
themselves.
things being kept secret. There's a lot of etiquette. There's a lot of rules that everyone has to follow. Even the elite have to follow. So not everyone is as they seem, and it's
With
very exciting.
beautiful dresses and
Oh,
beautiful settings and, you know, like
beautiful, like futuristic, but still like so
hot.
so often when we want to imagine beautiful settings, we want to imagine that historical fantasy kind of place. This is actually such a modern futuristic world, but equally so stunning, and just imagining
And it
them up in the clouds.
it brings in though that kind of like there's a couple of like settings that they go to, I won't spoil anything, where you still get that like fantasy or
Magic.
historical magical kind of environment, which is a cool way to do it. Like so it really just has a lot of really good vibes.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
honestly. And then like there is, for the non-vibes readers, the ending is like gonna blow your mind next level. We won't spoil anything, but like you are gonna be coming back to that ending over and over and over
We
again.
literally sat there for 20 minutes and re-listened to it at like 0.7 speed just to try and not miss a thing and figure out what's unfolding. Like, it's really sharp. Cannot wait for the sequel. All right, I feel like we need to get into spoilers because
you've been gushing. If you haven't read it, freaking turn off the podcast and go read it. Like, honestly, go read it right now. Don't let us spoil it for you. Go read it and then come back and finish this podcast.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it. Because I really want to talk about Colin for a little bit. All right, this is our main MMC, which, okay, now everyone who has not read it has left. Now all of you are in the know, because we're just talking about, you know, that it's not a historical book, it's not a fantasy book. And I don't know if I'm unhinged with this. I felt like Colin had Mr. Darcy vibes.
He totally does.
Oh, thank God. I'm literally going to ask this to Ariel.
Historical MMC vibes. Like, he absolutely reminds me of like a Bridgerton hero.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about him that just feels luxurious.
I know, because he's spoiling her with chocolates and all this stuff before it all starts to turn. And when it starts to turn, he's like, well, if you don't believe me, what's the point of me trying? And I'm like, oh my God, you need to freaking like just answer her question. But I felt just so much like he was this really in control constantly and not showing his true self, kind of like Mr. Darcy. And then, of course, the fact that his name is Colin, and all I could think about was Colin Firth played Mr. Darcy in the classic. And I just kind of couldn't help but wonder if there was some kind of connection there. I'm glad I'm not like unhinged.
Well, and then I thought of like Colin from Bridgerton, and like he is described as always being in sort of like this like suit. And so for whatever reason, and this was like before you had even told me that, I always pictured him being in like a Regency era suit, like a Mr. Darcy type suit. I'd have to go back and really look at the descriptions, because to be honest, I like inhaled this book.
He's always he's always very well put together. I mean, he's part of the Eloom, so he always has to look in control. And I think that was one of the most fun things, was probably one of my favorites, a couple of my favorite scenes. All of them have Colin in them. I'm a Colin girl, just in case you didn't know. But when he takes her into the car and he's trying to ask her the truth, and he is more out of control than we have ever seen Colin be before, I was like, yes, just seeing him get uncomfortable and unleash it was awesome. It was just...
I know. Well, and then what's interesting is that, like, I think of the other character, whose name I forget. I'm so bad at remembering names.
Wait. Which character? Hal?
Hal. Thank you, Hal. Hal, I like picture as being this almost like modernly dressed. Like, it's so interesting that in my mind we can have like, as I'm like, because I really see things as I read, and so in my mind I'm seeing like Colin in this like Regency era, you know, like suit out get up, and then I see Hal as being in just like jeans and a t-shirt, but like hot jeans and a t-shirt.
Kind of like a Hemsworth look is kind of what.
Exactly. Like a Hemsworth vibe.
And very a bit more cheeky, a bit more like, you know, relaxed, and you know, he's
and like wearing very simple clothing, but still pulling off like super hot in just like jeans and a white tee, you know, like that kind of how he is in my head.
Mind you, I feel like, and I mean, maybe this is just me because I'm Colin obsessed, but I feel like even in the moments where Emmeline is like, wow, Hal is so hot, his body, his everything. But then she'll be like, and then I remembered that kiss with Colin. And I'll be like, yeah, that's right. Like Colin is like Henry Cavill. And then like, yeah, this is like Liam Hemsworth. Like it's kind of the equal, like The Witcher. It's like, yeah, let's just for a moment go. For me, there is one that is far supreme.
Yeah, I for sure think that Colin is the main love interest, primarily from that ending, which we'll talk about the ending in a little bit. But but at the same time, I did really enjoy her time with Hal. It wasn't one of those stories where I was like, all right, can we get back to Colin? You know, like every time she was with Hal, I was enjoying her being with Hal.
Well, I was really, I kind of, because I was obviously just, I've been rereading this and a lot of me has been going, as I've been listening, I'm like, who is the Reaper? Who is the Reaper? I now have a new theory about who I think the Reaper might be. Not that then it's kind of this back and forth thing. There's like little pieces come in and I'm like, okay, I know that whoever the Reaper is very like wants to protect Emmeline, has said no one's to touch her. So it's someone that cares about her that much, which would really narrow it down to Hal, Colin, or possibly her old friend Alice. I was also wondering Gregory. Sorry, I've just gone
Her
straight into
brother,
theories
yeah.
now. Like, sorry, I didn't mean to do that, but like, yeah, there we go.
Or Colin's sister, who
Nora.
I have not ruled out. Nora, I have not ruled her out as the Reaper. Or as, at the very least, somebody connect. Like, I haven't necessarily ruled out the idea that the Reaper isn't a single person, but like a series of connected people who.
Well, yeah, because this was the thing. I really, by the end of my last read, I was so sure that Colin is potentially the Reaper, is potentially that person in the last chapter. Like, I really kind of was like, I think it's going to be Colin. But then I was just listening to a part where he was very concerned about what the Reaper had done with like breaking in and stealing medications and causing all this. Either he's just and this is just talking to his family. This is not him talking to like a place where he doesn't need to be in control. He's kind of with his people. Like, obviously in this world, you always have to have your mask on, especially if you're doing anything bad. But he sort of still seemed concerned. I feel like Colin is the sort that he'd be trying to fix this from within. He'd be thinking, I need to do, like, I feel like he would have a big game. Like, I feel like the Reaper's just causing havoc, whereas he probably actually wants to beat the Eloom playing by their own rules, their own game. Like, he'll be doing it properly. I know that's kind of my theory at this point in time.
But then it's like, but that's the good thing about this book is then like I can talk myself into anything, you know, and I'm like, okay, but I could also see a world where like either he's just trying to throw Emmeline off because he knows that Emmeline is like connected to this like rebellion, because if he really is the Reaper, he knows that she's spending time with Hal and spending time with like the people around Hal. So like he could just be in that moment trying to throw her off. Or it could be a situation where, again, like multiple of them kind of like play as the Reaper, and he's maybe saying to Nora, like, you fucked up, you shouldn't have done that. Like, you shouldn't have gone and taken medicine, or I don't know. It's just really interesting. And the thing that I think, as I've been kind of rereading it, and really that's been sitting with me so much, is that Hal and Colin and Nora and Gregory all grew up together.
Yeah.
And we're friends. I mean, I think though, like we are.
Even Hal was in there for a while.
Was friends with them. Exactly. Hal was friends with Colin and Nora, and especially Colin, especially. And so, like, I just think that there's so much about that past history that we don't know. The only thing is, because, like, of course, I consider a world where like Hal and Colin are maybe like working together, but then I think about like Hal's hatred of the Colin and Colin,
like, even I'm just doing my third reread, and she's just gone into the underground, and she's for the first time talking to the group that are part of Hal's gang, and they're like, don't say anything to her. Her mate is an Eloom, like, you know, she's the Eloom's mate. So they seem to be very much in the. They don't trust Colin. They're not there going, oh, we actually know the truth that Colin's actually the Reaper, so it's fine. They were very much like, no, we don't. So either they're not in the know, or like he's not, or not to their
Yeah.
knowledge.
Well,
So,
I don't know if like the rest of them would be in the know. Like I could see a world where Hal and Colin are sort of like secretly, maybe not like totally buddy buddy, but like a situation where like they know they need each other or something, and
yeah.
so they have to like work together even though they like have this like begrudge between them or something. But again, I think that Hal is pretty anti Colin.
Yeah. I think that there's a good chance that Hal doesn't actually know who the Reaper is. I don't think he is the Reaper. I think that's too obvious, but he may not actually know who it is. As I say, I think it could be a series of people, or if I think there's one of those side characters. I can't remember what some of the other names were, but I feel like possibly one of them actually knows who it really is, but it,
Who
it,
it really
it hasn't
is.
been released yet. I
Yeah,
think something
yeah.
that's been really interesting me is why Colin has chosen Emmeline as his mate, because I think there was a lot of intention around this before he realized that he really liked her more than he was meant to. I think that there
Mhm.
was a purpose here. I don't think it was just around them being mates and having babies. I think there was something, whether it's got something to
Well,
do.
he says in that very first date scene at the dinner, like, I know everything about you.
Yeah.
Like, I reviewed everything about you and and he like, I think he like repeats it multiple times. Like, I chose you,
Mm-hmm.
like implying that like there could have been other options. And for whatever reason, he picked her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that was definitely
There's a reason
intentional.
behind it. Whether it's
Mhm.
her connection to her family, whether it's her connection to Alice. I'm kind of wondering, because she was Alice's best friend, if Alice is the Reaper, and now he was needing that connection through her to kind of get to the Reaper, maybe. I don't know. But I do think that there's a purpose there, that we're yet to find out what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think it has to do with her genes. I just feel like everything comes back to genes in this world,
mhm.
and,
She's probably
you
actually
know,
got the perfect half or something.
exactly. I think there's something that, that, like, potentially she was sent to the minor defects as, like, a place to hide and
Yeah.
keep her safe until, something could happen and or, because of her genes, because I just, like, don't obviously I think we're meant to question like what makes somebody really a minor defect versus a major defect, because like on the surface level there's really nothing about them. I mean, she has an obvious like defect. She has two different colored eyes, but nobody else does. Nobody else
Very
actually
rare.
has an obvious physical defect.
And
um
one of the things that is said to be really rare is the fact that Colin and Nora are twins. And they
right.
say, oh, it's like it hasn't happened in hundreds of years. Like, it must have been really special that you guys are twins. And they were like, yes. And then he also wouldn't talk about his parents. That seems like they're no longer here. We don't know what has gone down and the impacts of that. But I feel like the twins thing is going to be important. And I wonder if somehow Emmeline having the two eye colors, I don't know, was she meant to be a twin? Is there some kind of connection to the twins thing that's going to come into play?
Oh yeah, that's really interesting. Well, and you know what's I also find interesting is it is sort of implied that Colin was chosen by the Eloom because of his genes, that like he something about him made them be like, okay, we can have a new member now. But like Nora theoretically has the same genes.
Yeah.
And we learn and we're told that like Nora has had multiple, kind of mates or husbands or whatever, because they want her to keep like breeding essentially. And she's had kids with like three different guys.
Yeah.
And so there's something
And
about their
I'm
genes.
so certain that one of those kids is Gregory's. I think the first one.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if it was all of them.
I'm so sure that they are his kids. And that's part of the
Well,
reason I've
and
questioned. Oh, sorry, go.
I was gonna say, like, what if the Eloom are having her like breed, trying to get a specific result, and it keeps getting messed up because of Gregory? Like, that would just be so fun. Although I don't know, I feel like they like monitor that, but maybe not. Like, maybe I don't know. Like, we don't ever really see how they are like learning about somebody's genes. Like we don't ever actually
No, we're
see
still like
it, you
getting
know?
more hopefully that's more that's going to unfold in the next book. And I want to talk more about Gregory in a moment, but I want to just quickly circle back to Emmeline and her connection to the Reaper and the twins thing. And it's like, what if she actually is a twin? What if, like, because they always talked about the mother being like wanted to save her, but they didn't talk about whether there was maybe another one and it went straight to Major Defect. And there's this like elite soldier in green that she keeps talking about and is like, oh, he feels like really familiar. Like she always feels like, it's like, what if that's her like Major Defect brother? I'm sorry, that's such an unhinged theory.
Or elite brother, or just brother who was like spirited away for some reason because of his genes or something. I mean, like there's something there, and I'm just like I just like love how many questions we have.
Exactly.
Like
It's just ultimately there's all these little Easter eggs, but no real answers. So you're just like, oh, maybe, but you also
maybe
don't know. I definitely have a lot of questions around Gregory. As I said, probably my most recent read, I started to really wonder if Gregory could be the Reaper because he says some really powerful things. He says, I would do anything for her. I'm not a good man. He's left out of so many things. Like he doesn't get to be part of what are they called? The elite kind of panel that go and do all the rest of the family does. And Gregory is left out. And at this point in time, the Eloom, this world, has not allowed him to be with the love of his life. And I feel like he could be at that point where he is like, I'm just going to fuck shit up. Like, I will burn the world for her. I want to be with Nora, and they're never going to let us be together in this world. So I'm going to destroy this world for her. I feel like he is at that point where he would totally do that.
Yeah. The one thing that I keep coming back to this, and I need to go reread this to like really make sure it's like settled in my brain, right? But I feel like there's like, after that really big attack that kind of like shuts down the city, where Colin like sends for Emmeline. He's like, she has to come and be safe in my apartment because like everything's getting shut down. They say that like the Reaper's on the ground, like that he's there. And so it almost makes me think to myself, like, who wasn't on the ground that day? Because that kind of, it almost feels like that's like an intentional kind of like thing that's been laid by the author to help us kind of figure out like, okay, you can narrow it down because you know that Colin was not actually there. Hal was not actually there. Like who, so it's really interesting, like who was there and who wasn't. The other person I think it could be is the other brother of Emmeline, the one that's sort of like the assistant to Colin.
Yes.
Because he's a really interesting character. Like I sort of feel like he's maybe in love with Colin, and like I for a little bit was like was kind of wondering if like that's how the story was gonna go. Was that like actually, Colin and this brother are like together, and so he actually chose that his sister as like a way to kind of be with his lover. Like I don't know, I just like as I was reading it, like I really got vibes that that brother is in love with Colin. And I could see him being the Reaper as like this like way of like he wants to fix the world to get Colin out of being the Eloom because he's like clearly miserable or something. Like that's another potential.
I think I've often thought that they're working together, that he's in the know, just like Colin. I feel like he's Colin's main confidant. I think whatever Colin's in on, I think he's in on it too. And he is the primary person that Colin trusts with the truth and the information. Now, whether that is the Reaper or whether that is trying to overthrow the Eloom from within, that's more where I think Colin's at. I think he's trying to beat them, but he is actually in the know. He knows what's actually required, and that what the Reaper is doing is just, making the Eloom really angry and really aggressive. So I think, that's kind of where I'm at. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how it all unfolds. As you can see, basically we've come away going, it could be anyone. It could be anyone.
It could be any of them. Like literally be any of them.
Have enough information to get us excited without enough to actually like lock someone down and say, yeah, it's got to be them. Like we can narrow it down to a few, but we're just not going to know anymore.
But I think the one person we know it isn't is the person we spent the whole book thinking it was, which is Hal. I think it's pretty clear to me that it's not Hal.
No. All right.
And so that's interesting.
Can we talk for a minute about how much we are angry at Hal? Can we do that?
Oh yeah, we have to. Let's talk about it.
I do not like even trying to read this book the second time around, a third time around. It's really hard to be okay with the Hal scenes, knowing what, like when you're listening and you're like, she has to wear the major defect blue dress, and you're like, oh, it's like, Hal did that? How mean?
Hal did that? How awful! And you know, like the whole time you read the book thinking that like Colin like sought her out, and Colin like, you know, has these nefarious purposes with her.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out that actually no, Hal is the person that sought her out, and Hal has nefarious purposes with her. And the whole time, like Hal was the one that was like playing her essentially.
Yeah.
Like I can't, and I do genuinely think that he did end up developing feelings for her that he would develop. But that is just like, to me, is like another reason why I don't think he's the Reaper, because I feel like that's
he manipulated her. Like, he manipulated their situation right from the beginning, and he like literally they did all this research on it. Was like, she's lonely, she does all this art, she needs to fall in love with her eyes. He starts calling her Moonlight. Like, you just start realizing it's all play for him, it's all a game. That there was nothing really genuine there. I think it did become more genuine. I think there was the moment where she gets taken away and he actually does start getting really concerned for her. So I think genuine feelings have come up for Hal, but unfortunately for him, it all started with manipulation, and so I don't think there's any coming back from that. And I think we realize that really Colin did nothing. Everything he did, he actually tried to do, to protect her. Even the things he did that were quite evil, he did it because someone hurt her or upset her, and he would destroy them. He's aggressive.
Right.
But we like that.
And like, this kind of is getting into the ending, but like, it's really, this is the one thing that kind of irks me about the ending. I love the ending, but this is the one thing that irks me, is like the main Elum lady, whose name I forget. I can never remember anyone's name.
Is it Tabitha?
Tabitha. Yes. Thank you, Tabitha. She basically says to Emmeline, like, you're going to do what I want you to do and what I say, because otherwise I'm going to hurt Hal. And Hal's going to do what I want because otherwise I'm going to hurt you. But like, Emmeline is super hurt by Hal. And like, I don't think that like her feelings are real enough that like it would allow Tabitha to control her. So that's like, I'm hoping that kind of gets addressed, and that like maybe Tabitha kind of just like made a mistake in like, and maybe didn't realize that Hal had betrayed Emmeline.
Yeah.
But like, that's the one thing that I'm just like, okay, so now Emmeline is just like totally compliant because you have Hal, this person who she's pretty pissed at right now.
Yeah. I definitely think Tabitha doesn't know all the ins and outs. She knows enough to know that she went down to the underworld, potentially had a relationship with him, doesn't know all the nitty-gritty details, so doesn't know that there's actually problems there. So he's not as much of a influence on her as they might think. I think she's an influence for Hal. I think Hal really cares about her, and he knows he fucked up. So he's like, oh, I need to make this right. But for her, I wouldn't say Hal's dead to her. I think in general, Emmeline doesn't like the idea of anyone dying. She gets upset even just about strangers dying. So she will want the best for Hal, even though she's angry at him. But I'm just so fascinated to know how Colin will be furious. Like, he is, I think in that last scene, I haven't done my most recent, I haven't quite got to that in my current reread, but he's realized that there was a bit of a relationship there, and he's pissed. He's like, you're mine. What is this? What has been going on? And then I think if he finds out that Hal manipulated her and tricked her, like, Hal is going to be in so much trouble if Colin learns the truth.
Yeah, for sure. And then again, to like add in that like they have this like past history with one another. that we don't know what else is there between them and what other like grudges could still exist between Hal and Colin and like their upbringing. It's just really interesting. But can we talk about the ending? Is it time to talk about the ending?
I was going to say, do I either suggest that we do a quick overview of like a summary, or do we just go straight to the ending? I feel like I'm happy with either option because I definitely want to talk about the ending.
I kind of basically summarized it in the talking about it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. If we haven't, we'll probably just still go back and just talk about dresses for a minute and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but let's talk about the ending because it's
I'm ready to talk about the ending. Okay, so let's do a summary of the ending. Let's talk about what we remember from the ending, and then we can like break it down from there. So they're at this like, so first like Hal does a betrayal, and then she basically, and remind me of this, but like she basically then immediately has to go to this like ball or whatever with Colin. And they call Nora and her have this little moment in Colin's office that kind of made me, when I was reading it, think that maybe Nora was the Reaper, because Emmeline is asking like really pointed questions about like what's going on. And maybe this is this where Nora was like the Reaper was on the ground? Did Nora say
maybe
that?
And is this the part where she says, how do we know the Reaper's not a woman?
Yes, that is definitely the part where Nora says that, which I think is interesting. So they have this like, I think that conversation is critical, and I want to go back and reread that conversation because I think that's important. And then they have the ball, and then
and just quickly, she has to wear the really painful dress that has like the jewels on it that like dig in and cause pain. Just and Colin's pretty angry at her, so he's squeezing her tightly and inflicting a little bit of pain, which is kind of hot as well as being angry at her. But anyway, sidetrack.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, okay, I'm going to be honest, I don't really remember what happens at the ball. All I remember is like when Tabitha comes in. So help me with my memory.
I have not got to this part in my current reread. So it's a little hazy because if it's been more than 2 weeks, it isn't overly present in my brain. I just remember that he was really angry at her, and when they're dancing, he starts to be like, he's sort of found out, I think, about her connection to the rebellion and to Hal, and he's like, what did you do?
For a couple hours, exactly.
And he's like saying, the Elum know, like, they're gonna come for you now. I can't protect you. Like, and he's very much like, I can't protect you.
Yeah, and then he is like insisting to her, like, you got carried away, or something. Like, he's basically telling her
what she has to say.
Like, what she has to say, because he knows what's about to happen, like, presumably. And then they go out on the balcony with Tabitha
they go in the car, I think, for a little bit, don't they? And that's where he's trying to get it out of her, like what? Yes. But then there's only like a minute, and then the time's up, and she has to then go meet with Tabitha.
And then she goes, well, no, this is before she meets with Tabitha. This is in a one-on-one setting. They like go on the balcony and they're like announcing like their relationship or whatever. And then Tabitha is like, and we cut the Reaper. And then Hal, like, there's someone dropped at her feet. Maybe am I like not remembering this at all? I feel like this is, and then like they take the thing off and it's like the mask off of Hal, and it's Hal.
Yeah.
And that's like public, like that's in front of like people, like the whole crowd. And then they go into the car.
Yes, correct.
And that's where, and like Colin is like reiterating whatever he said while they were dancing. And this is where Colin kind of like loses like all control, you know.
Yeah. And basically she's gotten herself in a lot of trouble, like, and he's now telling her, this is what you need to say to Tabitha. Like, this is what you need to say.
Yeah. And then they arrive at like the Capitol, and the second they walk into the Capitol, Colin, this is where like I'm really interested. Colin like talks to this officer in green who Emmeline thinks is familiar, and is like, who's here? And he confirms, he's like, it's just Tabitha. And the officer in green says, Charles isn't here. And Colin is like seems to be relieved that this person named Charles isn't here. And we've like never heard anything about Charles. We don't know who Charles is.
No, like, but all we can tell is that if Colin is scared of Charles and he's not, like, he's scared of Tabitha, but not as much as Charles.
No, not as much. Yeah, he's like terrified of Charles.
Are very concerned about who this is.
Yeah. And then it's like, but this is just some like random soldier, like seemingly has no like difference to the other soldiers, and that seems
No.
really interesting.
But it's
And
the
I'm really
one that Emmeline feels is familiar
is
for whatever
familiar.
reason.
And that's really interesting. And then Tabitha comes out and she's basically like, go, Colin, go deal with this. I'm going to talk to Emmeline on my own. And Colin seems really nervous about that. And then Tabitha and Emmeline talk. And this is where Tabitha's like, you're going to do what I say, blah, 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 blah.
And
Lots of reveals.
And what we understand, she is terrifying. Like isn't she like covered in blood? And she's like, she comes in, she's obviously been torturing Hal. She's covered in blood, like blood is splattered on her dress. And like Emmeline is terrified. Emmeline is like there's a big thing of chocolates and she's asking Emmeline to eat and drink. And Emmeline's like, just wants to throw up.
Yeah. I think of her as being kind of like this like interesting, like scary combination of Jessica and Amryn. Like that's kind of how like almost like this otherworldly like thing that is
exactly
questioning her.
almost like an Asteri. It almost feels like an Asteri, like that kind of power that they're emulating.
Like those scenes. Yeah. And this is the thing that I think is really interesting. At one point, Tabitha says to Emmeline, I forget how they bleed, referring to humans. Like basically referring to like how, like when she was torturing Hal, she's like, I forget how they bleed. As if like
she's not
how
one.
we bleed, how they bleed, as if she is not human. Which I think is really interesting. And that just kind of like ups the Asteri vibes for me. That like, because up until this point, like all we've been told about the Elum is that they're just even more perfect humans, like with their genetics.
They're the ruling race. Like they're the
ruling
dictators.
Gene.
Yeah.
But I think that actually there's something else here. I think that like either
an alien race or something.
Or vampires or something like that.
Oh
she says like
and they've ruled for like hundreds of years, haven't they? Like they've ruled for a really long time, like not just a short time. And I mean, I think there is some belief that obviously if you are elite, you'll live longer a bit because you're given the perfect kind of food and everything like that. But why are they trying to create this perfect race? Like what is the ultimate?
And is all of this like defect stuff like basically kind of like the Asteri, like food for them? And then the other thing Tabitha says, and this is where I really get the vampire vibes, is she says, death is so quick. I learned that the hard way the first time. Like as if like she has died maybe multiple times and she's like learned the very first time that she died how fast it is or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think, and then there's like all this talk, and then she also in that conversation with Emmeline, she says a lot of like, she talks a lot about all the things that they gave to humans. So I'm really, really interested in like what the Elum are, because I think it's pretty clear that they're not humans. And so they're either like vampires or some kind of alien race, or potentially like, because this is sort of like a science, sci-fi, dystopian, science-based world, like potentially even humans who have evolved through science somehow, like cured death or something.
To be clear, up until now, there's been nothing magical in this world. Like it's just futuristic, dystopian. It's more about, everything that they talk about is really something that exists in our world today, whether it's alcohol, medicine, it's all it's real,
it's sci-fi, it's science. There's a scientific explanation, even if we don't understand that science.
This would be a massive twist to take it to a place where we've actually got a vampire ruling race. Or what I guess you could explore.
I would think, I don't think that they would be called vampires. Like I'm thinking that it would be like they would act like vampires and we would recognize what they do like vampires, but that somehow it was like they just like did it through science or something like that. Like they somehow found the cure to death, and so they
live forever and they need to feed off people's life force or something,
or something like that. And so it kind of like feels like vampires, but it has like some kind of scientific explanation. That's sort of what I'm thinking
Yes,
is going
yes.
on here.
Can I just say, like, straight up, I thought the sound of the sanctuary sounded terrifying. Like my
So
first thought when I heard about it, I was like, I feel like that sounds like one of those places that's really nice, but really they're probably all connected up to machines and they're actually not even conscious. There are people though that say that they've come from the sanctuary though, so it actually does sound like it's a real place and it's not as perilous as I imagine it could possibly be. But I'm definitely still very, very sus on this sanctuary. What happens when people are eliminated?
and just for if listeners don't remember, so the sanctuary is a place that
women go,
elite
yeah,
women who are pregnant by an elite, sometimes they're elite themselves, sometimes they're not, they can go to have their baby if their mate, the man, decides that they're not going to have their baby kind of with them. And that's like part of like what's getting negotiated in a mating contract is like cohabitation. Like basically like are we going to live together, and how long are we going to live together into a pregnancy? And it's kind of like unheard of that Colin is basically saying like you're going to live with me full time. Like we're going to have complete cohabitation. You're never going to have to go to the sanctuary. You're never going to have to like, you know, um go off it. But I think it is interesting for sure that like we don't really know what goes on there. It does sound terrifying, and I could easily see a world where like people just quietly disappear, or
yeah,
babies just quietly disappear because of something that
yeah,
the Loom are doing, and they they're looking for some kind of specific genetic trait because that's what they need to feed on, or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, exactly. I feel like I know what you've spoken about just now reminds me of the Matrix, like, and how the machines actually feed off the human energy, and that's what they need to survive. So we have definitely seen in other sci-fis the exploration of humans being used for food, and it'll be interesting to find out more of what's going to unfold with the Eloom, with Tabitha and Charles. Certainly, you get the real feeling that like Colin is just doing their bidding. He is not part of the Eloom. He is just
Right.
their
We're kind of
spokesperson, their
told that
connection to
he's
the
like
world.
their enforcer, that like he kind of goes and enforces their will. And throughout the book, we kind of learn that maybe he's not really fully part of them. Like he's maybe like their human kind of
Represent.
mouthpiece,
Mm-hmm.
representative. And then this is what's another thing that's really interesting that Tabitha says in this conversation is she says like that she believes that she's kind of behind the scenes pulling the strings of Colin, and that like she's the one who told him to take a mate, and she's the one who told him to take her, and that what she was doing was trying to break him, make him stop believing in like love and humanity and things like that, and that what Emmeline has done will be like the final straw to like break him so that he can ascend to be this like I guess cold heartless Eloom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also it just is so interesting if like if the Eloom are if they are this like kind of
Elite race.
evolved elite race, whatever, wherever that comes from. Colin is clearly not, right? Because Colin is just like 30 whatever years old, like because Nora is as well, but they've recruited him. And so like why are they recruiting him? And is he gonna face this decision to like undergo what like maybe like a surgery or whatever to kind of ascend to this like elite race? And like is that why Tabitha is and maybe like that's why they want him to breed because he has great genes, and so then I don't know, there's like so many
There's
questions.
so many questions. There's so many questions. We can only break down so much. All right, let's talk quickly about the very ending where we've got someone like cuffed in a cell room. When I read this the first time,
A male, right?
a male.
Pretty sure it's a male that's
Now,
cuffed.
when I read this the first time, I thought it was Hal. I just didn't even think twice that it could be anyone but Hal. But I had someone come to me who had read it and they said, "Who do you think it is at the end? Is it Colin or Hal?" And I was like, "Well, it's got to be Hal, right? It's got to be Hal." So then I had to go back and listen to it very, very slowly, very, very. And I'm actually now way more convinced that it might actually be Colin who is actually cuffed up. What do you think, Ali? Yeah. Variation. Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Okay, hear me out for a sec, because I'm just like combining that with your theory that they're vampires or something to that effect. And because my first thing was like, okay, is it Colin? Then I'm just like, but why is he chained up? Like, why is he in chains? Like, he didn't seem like he was getting arrested. He didn't, obviously we got that impression from Hal, which is why my, yeah. But what if he's already been like turned into a vampire and he is an Eloom, like, and now he needs to like uh, chain himself to like not feed because
Go
yeah, I don't know,
after,
to not go
I
feed
mean,
on
like,
the
that's
full moon or something, like, I don't know.
that's
I
kind
just
of where I'm like, thinking it's gonna go, is that like they're gonna be vampires, but not like, but like scientific vampires. But then like we're gonna, all the same tropes that we come to expect with vampires will be there. One of them being the first time they're turned, they're like uncontrollable with their like lust or whatever, their desire for blood or whatever it is.
yeah.
That could totally be it.
I mean, I like the idea of it. I like and it might
I
be
like the idea of it too. I do too. I actually really like the idea of it.
like, it's also kind of werewolfy, like, because it's kind of like, because how like they often have to like there's just a few nights of a month that they have to be chained down. And I think with Colin, does Emmeline ever spend the night there? Like, even oh my god, I'm just thinking about like Hal always calls her Moonlight. Not that that has any kind of relevance, because that's but I don't know. I feel like there could be something there. I feel like it is Colin that is actually there. I think that's way more interesting than it being Hal, but I do not have enough information yet to break down all the pieces. But
I
there's
think it's Colin.
yeah.
So I'll just say what I think. I think that it is Colin. I could be wrong, and that's fine. But
Yeah.
I think it's Colin, and I think that Colin is the Reaper. Even though I've offered many other points of view
Mm-hmm.
throughout this, and offered the evidence that like they said that the Reaper was on the ground and Colin wasn't on the ground. But I actually feel in my heart of hearts, which could be wrong because this is just based on my gut feeling and my vibes. In my heart of hearts, I think that the person chained up is Colin, that Colin is the Reaper, and I think the person talking to him is Nora.
I agree. I think it's definitely Nora.
I think that either Colin left and it was a setup and Tabitha wanted him to get captured, or he got himself captured and Nora is coming to like get him out.
Mm-hmm.
Or Nora is on the side of the Eloom and like has actually been like a spy for them this whole time. And because they know that he's the Reaper or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and she's coming to sort of like reveal herself or something like that.
Yeah.
But like
I
that's what I think.
I feel
I
like
think
Nora is in the know. I think something that's really interesting about Colin and Nora is they are not like the everyday elite. They are educated, they have access to books and art and things. So I think they're very in the know and they're very aware that the world is not good, that the world is not as it should be. We know that Nora is extremely protective of her children. We know that she's going along with what the Eloom want because of her children. We don't know yet if she's doing something in the underground, except when she talks to Emmeline and she says, what if the Reaper is a woman? I definitely think the Reaper could be specifically one person, but very much like over a few different people. I think that there are a few people in the know, potentially Nora, Emmeline's brother, who is besties with Colin, who I can't remember his name right now. I don't think Gregory is involved in it, but
I don't think so
I
either.
think
And I could
Gregory
see
is
Nora.
Gregory
out of
is a
it.
dark horse. I would not rule him out also possibly being the Reaper. The only way that doesn't connect though was the people saying that the Reaper is quite like telling everyone to like be protective of Emmeline and stay away from her and whatever else. I feel like Gregory would do it because he wants to burn the world for Nora. So he's still my dark horse with my theory. Yeah, that's probably
The thing that confuses all of this is that the woman in the epilogue basically says that the person in chains is the Reaper and is like, "Are you ready to talk now, Reaper?" Now, that person could be misinformed, right?
True.
Like that person could think that the Reaper is Colin and it's not. That person, so that's one, but that's the only thing that for me is like, okay, I think, and like just like saying this person in chains saying like I have started a revolution in the clouds, not down in the major defects, in the clouds. And that to me is what Colin would have done, right?
Yeah.
Like Colin knows that like the only way to overthrow the Eloom is to do it from within the elite and from within them, that like, you know, and so I could easily see a world where like Colin is the Reaper. He actually has some kind of connection to Hal is like his person on the ground with the major defects, you know, because and that leaves Hal is a leader of sort of the rebellion, but Colin is the leader of the revolution. And
Yeah.
that
I don't think that the rebels on the ground actually know necessarily who the major Reaper really is. Maybe one of them. I think there's one that I think possibly has an idea, but most of them I think don't. Possibly because they wouldn't be supportive of it. If they found out that it was Colin, they would possibly not want to do it. They'd be like, no, we'll go do our
and
own.
it could
So
easily be a situation where, you know, he somehow meets with them or sends messages to them in a way that's cloaked, or,
yeah,
you know, like they've never gotten, you know, they just kind of take his instructions and follow them. And, you know, they all think that he's one of them, but he's not.
Yeah.
But
it's very interesting. All right. Before we wrap up, have you got any favorite moments of the book? Any parts that you loved the most? What were your favorite parts?
I loved the very first her getting ready scene for her date, when we meet the two women who like dress her, and I just like love their whole dynamic, both the two of them but also with Emmeline, and how they like make amazing dresses for her. It reminded me of like the Hunger Games, and how, you know, they all had their person, and the, you know, they're putting
there was an art to
political
putting the you know, the candidate together.
The candidate, exactly. I loved that scene, and I loved all of the scenes with them.
And I loved even just that they got the contact lens for her eye to cover it up. But then even the reality of it, that it ended up causing her a heap of pain.
I know.
And it was a really important part of her own character growth and journey as well. She starts really hating who she is and her eyes being different colors and things. But then as she wears contact, and it starts to cause her all this pain and discomfort and taking it out. And as she goes along, she starts to dislike. At the beginning, she like relies on it. She never wants to take it out. And by the end, she doesn't want to wear it anymore. She wants to be who she is. So it shows a bit of her growth as well. But the dresses, except for the major defect blue one, they were stunning.
And I hope that this, like, I really hope this gets optioned, because I can see it, it translates so well visually.
I know. It has to take off because it is such a visual, stunning book. It's so it just look, we read a lot of books that are very entertaining, very fun, hit all the great tropes and things, but they're not sharp. Like there's that sharpness you get from Rebecca Yarros, from Sarah J. Maas, from the really pro writers, and that's what Ariel has. She has that sharpness that really takes it to that elite level of writing. I want to talk about my favorite scene was that scene, well, apart from the one where Colin is like losing his control, there's like the scene before I think it all comes crumbling down, where she's found out the truth about Hal and she's kind of falling apart, and her and Colin almost have so close to an intimate moment. There was
I
not
know,
enough
I know.
intimate moments between Colin and Emmeline in this book. It was so frustrating. But then I think she asks him a very honest question about, do you ever imagine just escaping or something? And he says, every single day. And they're both like looking out onto the horizon. And that's our first little indication to tell us that Colin
Yeah.
is really not happy with this world. Like we see a moment of truth from him that he doesn't like this world the way it is and he wants to see it change, or he actually dreams of escaping it all.
I know. I love that scene. And like just that she goes to his apartment, you know, when she's hurting and like takes a bath and like I love that. And
Mm-hmm.
he like lets her, you know, he's just like, I heard you were here. Like, do you need anything? Like that was so
I know,
sweet.
he's so sweet. He's like a morally great MMC, all wrapped up like a little Labrador. Like,
I
he's
know,
like a
I
golden
know, I
retriever.
know.
He's
I cannot wait for spicy scenes with them. I need
oh,
to see
he's
more
been
with them.
so misunderstood, and that's because he's very reserved and he doesn't show his true self, and he's always wearing this protective exterior, obviously because it's so dangerous. But we don't really get, and that's where he's got that real Mr. Darcy sort of feel to him. And so I can't wait to get under the shell and find out what's really been happening for Colin, how he really feels about Emily. And I need him to open up and talk about it.
I would
And we
love
need
like
some
a
spice.
POV in the next book. That would be awesome. If that epilogue is from his POV, because it's whoever's in chains is the POV, and if that was like sort of foreshadowing that in the next book we're gonna have dual POV, I would be
Surely we will have spice between them in the next book. If
surely,
I think the
surely.
question I've had is, are they going to have their own genuine spice, or is it going to be time for them to be mates and have organized spice, which would be
Oh yeah,
a
that
little
would
bit more awkward.
yeah, for sure. Or if you know there's because everything in this world is like controlled and regulated, like what if there's like a specific way that they're supposed to like come together
Yeah. This is
and
kind of, it's got a bit
Colin
of a
just can't help
Handmaid's
himself
Tale
and break the
aspect to it.
rules. Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait, but I'm also like worried because I want the spice to be epic and I don't want them to be like forced to do it for the first time. I need it to be full of passion and
Yeah.
final yearning being able to finally occur. But this current book, it didn't actually happen over a long period of time. They kind of have, 3 moon phases before they go into their procreation phase. So it really takes place over maybe like 6 weeks or something like
Yeah.
that. They're just in the pre-phase, but it's coming up. So it's
We'll
probably going to hit
see.
that phase in the next one, and it's going to be interesting what unfolds.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
I loved it. You guys have to all go read it. It's so good.
Yep. As I said, it is truly, we are in dystopian era. Read this one, read Daggermouth, which is a whole dystopian with a different feel. I can't actually describe how they are both dystopian and yet so profoundly different, and both so good in a very,
Yeah.
very different way. That one's got more shock value. That's got more really high stakes. It's a bit of a chocolate cake, but it's very, very massive enemies in that one that, will they ever become lovers? Who knows? But yeah, and a really, really villainous villain. So go read this, go read Daggermouth, get yourself on the dystopian train and join us for our Ariel Sullivan interview, which will be releasing very, very shortly. But thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any thoughts, theories, please share them in the comments below. We've really appreciated having you, and we will see you guys next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.